today, my fellow Americans and good people of the world. My name is Cassandra Rizzo, and I am here today in one of the most iconic places in America, a shopping mall. I decided to come here today to be able to make a little video to discuss what I feel is probably one of the most important things that we have forgotten about our society. So many of us have been caught up in doing the same thing over and over again. And as the saying goes, expecting different results. And isn't that the definition of insanity? What I'm hoping to do is to spend some time talking to you about opportunities in doing things just a little bit different than what we're used to. The time that I spend having this conversation is time well spent. And I'm hoping somewhere along the way you will be able to catch on to the greater things that I am trying to express. So let's take a little walk through the mall as I discuss. Mind you, I'm sure there's going to be lots of people wondering what on earth I'm doing, and that's okay. So I like to come to the mall with my daughter and spend time talking about life, the universe, and everything. And in our time that we spend here discussing various things and just walking around, I always think of this really interesting idea. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a mall-type area for people to go to that had literally nothing to do with consumerism? So what I'm thinking in my head is I would love for there to be makers malls. Essentially, it works just like a regular mall. You have various different storefronts, and instead of going in these stores to consume things, you go in these stores to learn things. Kind of think of it as an experiential living museum of different things that you can do to be able to learn how to do various things. For instance, you want to learn how to do leatherworking. There's a shop for that. And you want to learn how to do metallurgy. There's a shop for that. You want to learn how to sew. There's a shop for that. And the whole idea is that any type of experience you would actually want to have, you can have. The only thing that matters is that you have to choose what you want to do. It's like pick your own adventure game. And the idea is the traditional forms of learning is based off of getting people to sit down and to read books and to listen to lectures and take tests. And that doesn't really accomplish much by way of getting people to actually achieve anything specific in terms of like actually doing. You need to have an opportunity to do hands-on applications in order to truly understand something. So that's where the idea of experiential learning comes in. You're able to do whatever's necessary to get your hands in on the subject, understand the applications, and follow through. So instead of sitting down with a book and it's teaching you with pictures and words and descriptives, this is a screwdriver, this is a hammer, this is a wrench, these are nails, and these are screws, and you use these things to build things. Instead, you go into a space like one of these storefronts, and there's models in there, and you're able to use those models as a reference. They're componented, so you can take them apart and put them back together again. And at each different level of taking it apart and putting it back together, you can see the intricate inner workings of it. And then you're able to, thanks, I like your hair too. And you're able to get a feel for like what it is. And how you take it apart is you use the tools. How you put it together is using the tools. And so instead of learning about what the tools are, you actually use the tools for their purpose, their proper intended use. And so therefore, when you're done, not only do you understand how to use tools to be able to like build this model, you have a deeper understanding of the application of utility, which is overall super important, especially if you're somebody who's going to be doing like a technical type of job. You need to understand like how to, but you also have to understand how not to. And the only way to do that is through trial and error. And so if we had spaces, kind of like malls, that we were able to incorporate learning opportunities for people of all ages to come in and be able to experience these different lessons without there being like a strict and rigid plan. Like if you want to go in and go to like expert level and try something, you can and push yourself in that regard. No need to like level up through, you know, certain age groups or grade levels or things like that. The only exception being, of course, if you're doing something that's like dangerous, you need to first learn safety first. And then you're able to move on from that to be able to do something that's a little bit more challenging, and then work your way up through the various levels of complexity to understand what it is that you're trying to get at. But all in all, is to say, like, if you wanted to understand about welding, you would have to understand the safety aspects of that, because you're working with arc, and that's power, and it's dangerous, and so you have to understand the safety protocols before you can have enough understanding to take responsibility for such a power. But there's nothing that says that if you're 9 years old and you're highly interested in becoming a welder, that you can't give it a try. And to me, it seems like because America's like so lost in consumerism, we have people that are wasting their time, effort, and energy walking around in spaces to purchase things that a lot of people can't afford to purchase because they are not qualified enough to work jobs that are available. And because of that, we have like this nonsensical, I mean, it's like contradictory in a sense. It's like, we want you to consume, but we're not going to give you opportunity to make money so that you can become a consumer. And then we wonder why these people are oftentimes left to the brink and are willing to do desperate things. And we have like mob thefts of stores, and then stores end up shutting down because they can't afford to stay open because of it. It's like a crazy conflict cycle that makes absolutely no sense. So the whole point being is that it would be interesting to have a sort of opportunity for people to not just learn about things from their experiences in these spaces, but these experiential learning opportunities open doors of opportunity for them to actually be able to learn how to be skilled for a job. And they can level up through these experiences and gain mastery and be able to prove themselves out to be able to have these types of experiences. And having that is crucially important, because what we're doing is we are making people that are capable of being active participants and contributors to society, not just consumers. And when we do that, we lose a lot of the problems that we have with societies breaking down because of really lacks of social mobility ladders. This, of course, would be an opportunity for a social mobility ladder to be established. reason important to try something like this is because if you think of it this way, what if we got rid of traditional schools, phased them out, and gave ourselves a new opportunity to try something a little bit different when it comes to teaching people, and keep education open to people of all ages, and to let people of all ages learn together, and to make education not just experiential in terms of what you do in these separate shops to learn, but also what you get to do in terms of the socialization that can be created in these spaces. Having a chance to not only open up your doors of opportunity in terms of being able to try new things, but to experience new things too. So what I envisioned in these spaces isn't just a maker's mall where you can make like objects and tools, where you come in these spaces and all the tools you need, all the implements, all the articles, all the safety equipment, all of the tutors and education and resources, the library books, full internet access to be able to get to this information is made available there. So all you have to do is just show up and be ready to test out your skills. But also imagine having these experiential spaces where people could go in and try something fun and interesting to help them to socialize with other people. For instance, kind of like a traveling art exhibit in some of the spaces where different people can go and have different types of experiences that they could share with their friends. And these art installations or experiential installations can travel around the world to these various different makers malls and bring with it a bit of culture from different areas. Where I see this, two key areas where I see it would be super positive is, first of all, imagine having these wonderful spaces, unique and fun, staged and prepared for different types of content creators to be able to come in and make that information spreadable to everyone else. They can go in and they can experience these particular areas and share that experience with people online. And the more content creation we have, the more we're sharing a common culture. And if that our installation is similar in, it doesn't really matter where you go, you're going to have a similar type of experience, or it's a traveling one where many people get to have the opportunity to have that experience, then you get to see people from all walks of life, from every corner, of America and hopefully eventually the world, get to have the same types of experiences. This is super cool because of the fact that it's uniting us through our creativity. It's like, here I'm going to give you the same type of experience, but how do you perceive it? How do you experience it and share that with the world? The reason why I love that so much is, of course, because it opens up the door to people to be able to express themselves in the fullest, most honest sense. And this is important because there's not enough real world places for people to experience themselves and share that with others in real time and face-to-face encounters, and then hopefully be able to share that also content-wise with people around the world. And so we can create this common culture of what it is to be human and to spend time with friends in open inviting spaces, spend time with families. And oftentimes malls are considered to be those types of spaces, and there are awesome opportunities. A lot of them are staged with different types of setup, so people get to experience time with each other. And so this is a good thing. But the problem is, the majority of the experience of being in these malls is to shop, consume. And I want to just change that for it to be about experience and education. And then the other aspect of it is learning about culture from different parts of the world. Now, the reason why I think this is important, because one of the most fundamental aspects to society is that we're all human, one human race, but we're so diverse and we're so different. And people love to travel to different places because there's interesting things there. They want to go see things that you could only do in certain places. And the problem is we have a lot of tourism that actually becomes negative because we have people that go to spaces and disrespect them. And you're seeing like a kind of a trend that's happening in locations in Japan, in Florida, in Cabo, and all these different places where there's kind of an uprising of locals. They're like, we don't want tourists to come here because they ruin our home. And really, fundamentally, that comes down to a misunderstanding of how to respect space and place and respect identity for the people who are in those locations. And so another great opportunity in these makers malls is to make spaces where you can go and you can have an otherworldly experience where it's not just about having experiences, but trying out something that you've never been able to experience before. For instance, environments that are staged like it would be going to the Amazon jungle. And you enter in these spaces and you can learn about the culture, the people that live there. You can learn about the Amazon forest is like nature's pharmacy. You can learn about the unfortunate environmental degradation that's happening because of the commercialization of nature's pharmacy and the proliferation of destroying natural resources to create a monoculture of various ways to make money off of a consumable product, which again goes right back to the why does everything have to be about consumerism? Why can't it just be about life and living well and well-faring and being humans and expressing ourselves and living in accord and not destroying the planet that we actually depend on in order for us to survive? But so imagine these spaces that create, miniaturized subcultures representing, various locations. And you can enter in these spaces and learn about them. And you learn about the culture. You learn about the environment. You learn about what's respective of the identity of those locations. And then you kind of decide if you really truly want to go to those spaces. And if you do, you're prepared to go in a way that actually honors and respects those locations. Of course, this is kind of like having a travel agent, maker's mall experience where you get to go into spaces and learn about them and actually convince yourself how amazing it would be to actually be there. And in my opinion, travel is another one of the most important aspects of the transition of our economy from consumerism to experiential consumerism. It's not necessarily about stuff and things. Those stuff and things are nice to have, but that's not all that matters. What matters is, the memories that they make, the quality of life that it engages, the convenience in your lifestyle that it provides, the way that it helps you to connect with other people, the way that it helps to improve your capacities to be efficient and proficient, the ways that it helps to support your lifestyle or your capacity to be organized and professional, these sorts of things. So it's important to have these things, but at the same time, that's not all there is. There's more to life than just stuff. And so imagine having more experiences and then engaging people with a type of life experience that allows for that sort of thing to happen on a consistent basis. It's not just about going and shopping to buy stuff and things, but to kind of like shop for ideas about what the next adventure in your life you want to have. What it reminds me of is one of my most favorite animes, which is Sword Art Online. And the whole idea behind it is, spoiler alert, these kids are playing a like virtual reality game, and they go in and they get trapped in this world. And the world is amazing. I mean, it's highly detailed. There's so many different things that you can do, and you get to choose your character, you know, and you get to choose what sort of like equipment you want to have, what sort of training and capacities you can level up in, and you go in and you just play through the levels. Well, the idea is that while these kids ended up getting stuck in the game for an extended period of time, their like true bodies were like wilting away in reality, but their minds were being expanded in these spaces, and they got to go and experience things that they could not experience in the real world. They like transcended barriers. You know, somebody who was in a wheelchair could all of a sudden like run, you know, and there's other versions of the Sword Art Online that go off, and there's some of them where you can actually fly in different versions of the movie. But anyway, the point is that the characters got to go in and level up. So based off of what type of experience, you know, choose your own adventure game, you got to have different types of experiences, and you could level up on them. Some people chose to become highly proficient in cooking. Other people decided to become highly proficient in like fishing. And then others wanted to learn how to, you know, level up their skills in team play, and other ones wanted to be able to beat through the levels, collect certain, you know, rewards and things like that, going on miniature quests on the side. And all along there's people in the background trying to transcend to, you know, beat the game. But other people like just resign to their life of living there. And but the point is like they got to level up based off of what they found was interesting. The other aspect of that I really appreciated is the fact that, like I said, some people chose to learn about cooking, something that seems like it's just basic, but there's an art to cooking, you know, and if you really like apply yourself to it, I mean, you can become a master of that craft. And there's something about those types of experiences that a lot of people miss out on. And that leads me to the next aspect that I think is super important, that Maker Smalls would be able to actually enable. And that is probably one of the most important parts to creating a social, civic harmony in society. And that is to learn about domestication. The idea of our education system needs to teach people how to domesticate, how to take care of themselves in a home, because I fundamentally believe with all my heart that the way to be able to start a revolution is to begin with a home, because every revolution starts with a home. It starts with the idea of your own safety, your own sanctity, your own safe space, your own place of belonging. And then from there, being able to build your identity that you can go out into the world and present yourself, and then engage with the rest of the world and interact with one another and have encounters and engagements that you find out together what you can do that you wouldn't have been able to do alone. But there's a lot of people who just don't know how to live well. They don't know how to live to take care of themselves. They don't know how to keep a home tidy and clean. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to do laundry. And we used to have something kind of like that back in the day. They called it home economics. And it was mostly surrounded by trying to get women to, you know, be good little housewives. but remove the misogynistic tendencies of that. And it's a super important aspect of society, yet those were removed out of not having enough money to fund those types of programs. Yet we have a tremendous amount of money to be able to pay for sports, which I am not saying that's a bad thing. I love sports. I think sports are absolutely, positively essential for society because they help us to have moments of purging the aggression that is naturally built up inside of us, but doing so in a way that is courtly and it's kind and it has rules and there is aspects to it that can't be overstepped, rules and structure, boundaries, these sorts of things. So sports are crucial and important, but we also need to have domestication. We need to understand how to take care of ourselves. We also need the arts and the humanities, which domestication kind of bundles up a little bit under the humanities, but in itself, I think it is its own individual distinction. And I believe that Makers Malls creates opportunities for us to have lessons in domestication. You can go in and learn how to do your laundry. You don't have to worry about hoping that your family had enough time in their busy schedules in a society like forces most parents in even a dual parent house to have to work to barely scrape by. And so kids are often left on their own in their own devices, and they grow up without understanding. It's not the parents' fault necessarily. It all ultimately rests on society having these problems. And so, these kids are growing up without knowing how to take care of themselves. And then they leave the home and, they just kind of, things begin to fall apart. And so we need to change that in society. If we had people that understood how to be able to take care of themselves in their own home space and cultivate a home space, they would be happier, healthier people. They would live in a state of well-being. And this is important because if you are in a happy home, living a happy life, you are less likely to become detrimental to society in general. And so I think that if we had more spaces that allowed for people to prepare for domestication, we would have more civically responsible people. The opportunities to be able to teach people these sorts of things is important. And I think that a Makers Mall would be able to not only afford for that to happen, but make it so it's fun and interesting. There's no shame in admitting the ignorance of not knowing something. That aspect of learning, that is actually the funnest part about learning, is not knowing, because there's so much anticipation and uncertainty, and it's fresh and it's new and it's it stirs the inquisitive, curious nature that is inborn within us all. And it makes us not only interested in something, but it piques our curiosity, and our intelligence starts working in ways that you cannot simulate. It has to be in that natural form. And if you're doing it in a space where you're sitting down at a desk with a book and you're having to listen to a teacher talk to you as you're watching the clock go by and you're bored out of your mind and you're not really absorbing anything, and nothing that they're saying is actually going to help you in real life, what's the point? I understand it as education originally was Rockefeller, I think, was one of the people that initiated it, and it was kind of well, how can we get more people to work and then make sure that we always have a fresh round of new warm bodies to fill these positions, which means we need to have more kids in society. Well, you create a forced education on them where it's basically like a babysitter those kids would go to all day that would keep an eye on the kids while the parents went and did labor work. And if you create those, confined systems for the kids to be passed off on during the day, basically keep them dumped down so they don't actually really truly reach the heights of their intelligence, so that their only true potential will just be to turn into working class laborers that can easily be exploited in the same system and propagate forever and ever and ever. I mean, that's kind of like the original idea. Over the years, we've tried to evolve it and push it, and try to say that education's about we want people to be smart and intelligent, but the way we continue to do the same thing expecting different results, honestly, is, again, insanity. So I think it would be important for us to try something different in this regard. Get a new approach to education. One of the things in my heart in terms of wanting to become president of the United States is to bring this human touch to the office, to understand, the problems that we have in society. A lot of them are based off of lacks of opportunity, what they call social mobility. But for me, it's like lack of opportunity to have engagement in society, lack of opportunity to try new things, lack of opportunity to learn without the limits of, were you lucky enough to have a teacher that was willing to spend the time to teach you in the way that was necessary for you to actually grasp and comprehend it? Or were you just one of the students that fell behind because your mode of learning wasn't presented by that teacher in that space? And, I think it's hilarious that you actually think somehow we are going to have like the same results for everybody in society when our education system doesn't provide similar conditions for people to learn in. There are some schools that are like struggling. Teachers have to do GoFundMe accounts to be able to afford to help their students whose families can't afford to pay for the supplies that the school demands for them to be able to have, just so that they can learn. And, teachers struggle. And they're so underappreciated, and they are highly underpaid. And it's ridiculous because these people are probably one of the most brilliant forms of human ingenuity to be expressed. Because how do you grasp the attention of various aged, young minds that are very impressionable, and captivate them enough so that they absorb the content that you're telling them? But then you have to stay within the rigid rules of, whatever the, school administration says that you have to do, and then keep up with these arbitrary numbers of test scores to prove your efficiency, when that doesn't really reveal anything in terms of it. Like, if you want to measure the value of schools and the value of teachers and the value of the stuff, the topics, the concepts that we teach, outcomes. Look at the outcomes. Look at how many of the kids, not just, did they end up going to college or whatever, but is the quality of their life reflect someone who gets it, that understands life, that is actively using their conscious reason to engage with and explore and understand the world around them? Because learning is a lifelong process. It's not just you go through, high school and then maybe some college and university and then, education's over. It's a lifelong process. And education should be teaching people how to think critically, how to explore and investigate, how to question, how to experiment, And I think it sums up in the idea that in school, I hated math at a young age, mostly because I would try to express to the teacher, oh, I know the answer. And I would share it with them. They're like, oh, no, that's not right. Yes, that's the right answer. 1 + 1 does equal 2, but you didn't do it the way that we said you should have done it. And therefore, you're wrong. And I'm just like, wait a second. So it's not about me understanding and comprehending the unalterable fundamental reality that 1 + 1 is 2, and just being able to understand that out of my head without having somebody else to tell me the answer to it. All you care about is that I can repeat what you told me to do in the way exactly you told me to do it. Are you trying to make me into a robot? Because that's what it seems like. And so I wholeheartedly rejected that aspect of school, and I constantly was trying to rebel against it. And honestly, it wasn't until learning from my great-grandfather and my great-great-uncle, who were carpenters, I'd sneak into their workshops and I would steal little blocks of wood and I would use their tools and I would build like doll houses and bird houses and stuff. It wasn't until I picked up a tape measure to understand, how long something had to be, how long this board had to be, before math just, ta-da, came out. And I was like, I love math, this is amazing. And it was the practical application of it, the experiential aspects of building something, that brought that out in me. Whereas when I was sitting in school and they were like, here's this book, here's this formula, this is how you have to do it, write it down and answer, fill in the bubble to show us that you understand how we told you to do it. That's not comprehension. That's like I said, you're parroting back information. It's like you're a robot. They just want you to give me the same input response from everybody, instead of embracing the fact that everybody's intelligence is accessed completely different. And so therefore, when you put somebody in an environment that is stimulating the mind's situational awareness and having them to comprehend, the conditions, recall in their memory their generalized knowledge base, and apply accordingly. Well, I understand this and I understand that, and this is similar in this way, it kind of fits together in this part, so if I do that, that makes a full-on connection, and then I have a new insight. Kind of like Tetris, I imagine it like ideas are these different shapes that come at you, but they are all based off the same fundamental principles of reality. Most of reality, we got figured out. Physics and math pretty much says the structure of the universe is thus, with a few lines of uncertainty that's still fuzzy, and we're working towards explaining those sorts of things. The fundamental basic building blocks of life are the same. And so if you take that information and you understand, this shape is this, and this shape's this, and this part's this, and this part's that, and you configure them around in different ways and they connect, you can clear a line. And then all of a sudden you're moving on to the next level because you cleared that line. You don't need to learn that again. You already know it's fundamental. It's a baseline fundamental first principles standard by which there's no other way for you to understand any other thing after that, because you don't understand the basics, then you can't understand the complexity. So being able to have an opportunity for people to learn that stuff in spaces where it's experiential, I think this is the missing element in terms of transforming our society so that we actually embrace our intelligence. Everybody's in this like mad race for artificial intelligence, and yeah, that's great. I am all for the idea of creating a cyber symbiotic relationship between intelligent machines and intelligent people. But if we are not educating people to be intelligent themselves, then all we're doing is creating something that's going to surpass us, which eventually will suppress us, especially in our economic society where we're turning these machines, this artificial intelligence into machines, into automated systems that make obsolete a lot of the jobs that people have. And then we're closing the doors of opportunity for people to be able to get those jobs. And, we're not teaching people how to skill up in different types of work where it's not just basic labor, because that's going to be replaced by machines. What are we leaving these people to, except for, to their own devices to cause chaos and wreak havoc? Because, idle hands, the whole idea of that. And so the idea is you have to be able to create something for people to be able to transcend. If we are going to do right by society, we have to do what's necessary in order to level people up. to the next level. And I believe that's what a Maker's Mall can do. We can bring out new experiential education for everybody, fully accessible. We can bring out new experiences of different cultures so we can have respect for each other, and a mutual respect, mutual understanding, and help us to be able to bridge some of the gaps of our misunderstandings with one another so that we have less conflict, and that so we can be more compassionate and empathetic and more respectful of other cultures and other identities, and become more inclusive. And then be able to have more like outward social experiences. We can meet together and have, face-to-face encounters, still have these types of across the screen of distance type of connections with each other, and create content to help us to like engage human creativity and the fascination that comes with that. But not lose out on the common human touch of like being in places with other people and sharing in that socialization. And then being able to have all that come together in a space that transcends the base, substandard education system that we have. Do away with those, phase them out, turn all schools that exist into affordable housing, and then build up these maker malls, make them accessible to everybody, make them accessible to anybody from any age, anybody from any culture, doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not, citizen, immigrant alike. People can come like a foreign exchange student and have experiences here too, and have these schools be replicated in every city and within an accessible radius of every town and community, and create a transportation system that gets people to those. And then let this be a basic universal innovation accessible to everybody. And to help to, afford to pay for it, it costs everybody $10 a month to be able to come and have this type of experience at the school. And the great thing about it is that it's not just a space where people go and spend their money and consume. It's a space people go, pay a little bit of money for entry, and you're guaranteed to have a safe space, to explore and express and to learn and to engage and to explore and take quests and just build upon your self-actualization. And so you actually get an opportunity to build tangible wealth. And to me, I think that's the future. What's holding us back is the fact we don't have that innovation in society. And as soon as we do, we will be able to transcend the linear and be able to embrace a future of, a technologically advanced future that doesn't leave anybody behind and doesn't disadvantage anybody. That's the type of future that I want to see. And so it's my sincere hope that I can be, elevated to a position of decision making that would be able to help to build those sorts of things and to create them in environments and invite everybody to become involved. Because to me, that's the type of future that I want to see. And in order for that to happen, we have to come together in agreement that there's more to life than consumerism. There's more to life than, just doing what we're told. We are human beings, and we need to be able to self-actualize, self-determine, and do so in such a way that is a beautiful life experience. So thank you for spending this very long time with me, traveling through the mall and listening to the sights and the sounds, and listening to my, thoughts as they come free-flowing. And I hope to be able to spend some more time with you again soon. So thank you again for your valued time and attention. Be well.